kids, welcome back to Uncle Fezzi's Mad Lab. Oh, what's Uncle Fezzi up to today? Well, not for nothing. Uncle Fezzi has changed his name to Miguel Plumas again. And I've now been charged with assembling a hardtop gazebo here at Stonecroft Grand Hotel, Casino and Resort. We'll see how this goes. The only instructions that came with this stuff were in English, where it takes 4 people to do this and mount it to the concrete so it doesn't blow away. This thing is 450 plus pounds. It came in 5 boxes. This is 3 of the 5s. I'm not going to record this in real time. I'm going to record it in time lapse and maybe do a voiceover. I have no idea how this project is going to go. What I do know is this one, the one below this, is so heavy that I can't lift it. Actually, as a matter of fact, the vast majority of these boxes, it came in 5 boxes, were too heavy for me to lift. So what I've been doing is disassembling, taking them out of the boxes and taking it out of the boxes and carrying it over there. One of the other projects that I did here this week was I hooked up all of my irrigation system. So I'm looking over here and I'm seeing water come out of where Ralph pisses all the time. I was thinking it was possibly Ralph piss. It's not Ralph piss, it's just water coming out of my irrigation system. It's not one thing, it's another around here. So that's it. Let's open a couple of these boxes. These all came. This is a Wayfair purchase. It was 1,200 bucks. I mentioned in my other video that I had grown weary of sacrificing easy ups to the gods, and well, this is the result. I think this is the screens and stuff. No, I'm wrong. Okay. Stuff came, I don't want to say shockingly, it came packed, let's put it that way. Okay, I'm going to take this whole box over there. I need to lay all this stuff out and see what's what. Because there seems to be no real rhyme or reason to the way they packaged it. Yeah, like I said, these boxes are so heavy I can't practically move them by myself, which is crazy that they even accepted them for shipping. The one box is almost 100 pounds. So I think what I'm going to do is, this piece of shit GoPro is sucking batteries again. So I think what I'm going to do is shut the camera off, let the camera charge up, get these boxes unpacked, get them over there, do another little monologue, and then I'm going to start doing a time lapse on this. We'll see how it goes. Okay, you're going to have to excuse the crap camera angle here because this is the only camera angle I feel like setting up. I actually did print these out. I printed these instructions out yesterday and actually came with a big yellow envelope that says instructions on it. Now the hilarious part about these instructions is it's in English and in French, so they must sell this thing in Canada. Well, the real funny thing is, well, there's a couple funny things. You know, just as with every project that I do, one of the things that I like to laugh about the most is, what does it take to assemble this, right? So, how do you assemble this? What does it take to assemble it? Well, according to the instructions, all it takes is a drill, a hammer, a screwdriver, a stepladder, and apparently you have to have either 2 black friends or 2 white friends to help you put it together. I can't quite figure that one out. But it says that you're also going to need a level, maybe, a square, maybe. Don't over tighten the bolts, and you need to measure things. So, I mean, quite frankly, this stuff should be put up here, right? There's an overview of the thing. I'll put the directions. I'll see if I can. I downloaded the directions, so I'll see if I can put them in the video itself. There's the parts breakdown. And not for nothing, there is no other written directions. There's no other written directions. It's all pictograms with exploded views, which never goes well, especially for me. I know how to read blueprints. These aren't blueprints. These are piss poor Chinese instructions. The nice thing is they are just pictograms. I mean, there's nothing worse than trying to read directions that were written in Chinese, translated into English, translated back into Chinese, and then written in English again. So there is, just as a bit of a giggle here, I did a little bit of quick math, and there are 400 oh, I take that back. There are 300 bolts that hold this thing together. There's 212. There's 212. Oh, they give you 11 extras. There's 212 M6 bolts, 68 M620 bolts, and 8 M640s. Okay, so that's pretty easy. The hardware actually came on a blister pack. I'm going to grab that. So here's the blister pack of hardware. Oh, they even threw in a wrench. The Chinese, the only thing worse than Chinese cardboard is Chinese hardware. The only thing worse than Chinese hardware is Chinese powder coat. So I left all the parts wrapped up for the time being. But I think we're gonna bust this sucker open. I also set up a little table here for my smalls, and I've got that there. So the game plan here, at least for me, is to get this thing together as far as I possibly can without requiring any help. I do have a step ladder, which I'm gonna need. Yeah, I'm gonna need the step ladder for sure. I'm kind of, in my head, I've already tried to figure out how I can do this by myself. It's no big secret. I'm a dickhead. I don't have very many friends. Actually, I'm more like the little red hen. Which, if you don't know the story of the little red hen, basically it's an analogy for communism. Or an analogy against communism. And basically the story goes, the little red hen goes through all the work to make bread, and nobody wants to help, but everybody wants to help come make the bread, or eat the bread. In this particular instance, nobody wants to come help me set up for a party until the day of the party. I'm not bashing all my friends. I do have some that I could call and have them come over and help. It would be mean to say I don't have any friends. And it would be mean to say that nobody offers me help. My bigger issue is I don't get along well with others. There's no I in TEAM, but there is an M and an E. So I'm gonna me this thing together as far as I can. So there you go. I'm gonna set up the time lapse, and we're gonna start this. We'll see how it goes, right?
Okay, I've been at this for 8 hours. Did 29 minutes of time lapse, but the reality of it is I've been at this for 8 hours. I pretty much assembled about 95% of this thing completely by myself. I have reached a little bit of an impasse, which is going to require me to modify a tool. So let's show exactly what's going on here. You gotta enjoy the K12 saws, or the concrete saws. It's been going on all day. The libertarian in me says, God bless him. The neighbor in me is like, Jesus Christ. Okay, so let's show what's going on here. Hopefully I can show it. So there's these bolts here that actually hold the roof panels on, and then this cover piece goes over top of it. This cover piece goes over top of this. Now, I'm not sure if it showed in the time lapse, but I actually was able to stick my I was actually able to stick my paw through the one hole there. But I can't stick, I got one in, I can't get any more in. So I'm gonna take a break, and I'm gonna evaluate how I'm gonna do that. I actually already have an idea. As a matter of fact, I had the idea as soon as I saw how this thing went together, knowing I was gonna be assembling it myself, how to do it. I think basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put an air ratchet on a stick and use a valve on an air hose to control the air ratchet. That's my game plan. I can use a magnetic socket that I've been using all day. There's all the trash, which I have to clean up also. Yeah, so much for needing 2 white friends and 2 black friends to do this. It kind of went together exactly how as I expected. If I was doing this and getting paid, I probably would have employed 5 people to do it. And what we would have done, actually 9 would be ideal. So put the entire roof assembly together first on the ground, and then have 4 men pick the roof up, the whole roof assembly up, and then 4 more place these, and 1 guy running around tightening all the bolts. If I had to do it all over again, that would be the way I did it. As it stands right now, I got to build a tool. But I did do it all by myself. Hence the name of the video. One man does the job of 4. Shocking, right?
Well, here we are 9 hours later. Well, actually less than 24 hours. So yesterday I assembled the entire structure. For the most part is assembled. What I do need to do is go back and basically tighten all the bolts to make sure everything's tight, because it is definitely a little loose and a little wobbly and a little wiggly right now. One of the major issues I have, and I can't come up with a safe and practical way to fix it, is all the way at the top of the peak, there's bolts that hold the sheeting down, that hold the steel down. That's why I have this Auto Body Man's Gandalf staff here. I was going to use my air ratchet and put the 10mm magnetic socket on there, run it up, set the bolt in the hole, and then using this valve just control my air ratchet. Well, there's a couple bad ideas with that. The idea itself is the sound idea. The bad idea is they use aluminum pop rivet thread setters in these things. Knock on wood, I have not damaged any of those thread setters. If you damage a thread setter, you're done. Your day is over. It is the epitome of your one broken bolt away from a 5-day ordeal, and that's what happens with those thread setters. I haven't damaged any of them. I'm not going to damage any of them. So I'm going to get the ladder. I'm going to climb back up. I'm going to take the excussion piece off and show you kind of what's going on here. I had a moment of geometry earlier. I couldn't figure out how I was able to get the bolts in. How I was able to get the bolts in the first time, but not the second time. You might get a chance to see me fall yet. Knock on wood, I have not fallen on this project. So, I mean, that's a good thing, right? This is actually the last one. I came out here this morning and did all this stuff ahead of time. One of the things, the other reason that I kind of gave up on yesterday afternoon was the structure itself got so hot that I couldn't actually physically touch any of the parts anymore after a couple hours. By the time 3 o'clock rolled around, this thing had gotten so ungodly hot. Yeah, I'm not too crazy about this. One step higher than I like to be on this step ladder. So the way this thing works is it's got this pin in the top, and there's a corresponding hole in the widow's peak. I forget what they actually call that. Cupola, maybe? So, like I said, there's 2 bolts all the way at the very, very top of the peak on each panel. So there's actually 2, 4, 6, 8 that are not getting put in. If it becomes a problem, I'll address it later. Maybe I'll, get some little kid to run up there and put the bolts in that weighs about 50 pounds. you know, not for nothing, Chinese children slave labor put this thing together. Why not have a little American children slave labor involved? All right, that's it. That's the last 2 bolts that have to be actually physically put into the part, or into the structure. Now the structure is wobbly. Okay, that's wobbly for a couple reasons. The main reason being is I don't have all the bolts tight yet. So while I did assemble it by myself in about 9 hours, it's not all the way tightened up. So I probably have another hour, maybe 2, of starting in one corner and basically tightening all the bolts up. The other thing I did, and this was absolutely my fault because I wasn't 100% reading the directions, is they included all these shitty, cheap lock washers. I didn't, at the time, when I read the directions, I hadn't totally taken into consideration where they went. I just wanted to get the thing together. And the lock washers are a pain in the ass. So where the lock washers go is actually all 4 corners. The way they attach in, they're supposed to have lock washers on them. So what I'm going to end up having to do here is actually take the bolt out, put the lock washer on it, and then put the bolt back in. It's not that big of a deal. I got to tighten the bolts up anyway. The other thing I have to do, now that this thing is fully assembled, is I am going to have to tap somebody, preferably 3 strong men, tall, strong men, to help me lift this thing up and put it back where it was. I've tried to move it myself a couple minutes ago, and I don't think I can do it by myself. Maybe I might be able to walk it over there in the corner by myself. The other thing is, and this is the hugest issue that I am absolutely torn on. These posts are hollow. So I have a couple options. The one option is to go to my local stone supplier and get some pea gravel and sit here with a little shovel and or a funnel and fill these posts with pea gravel. I could also just go buy a couple bags of rocks. I can't put sand in them because the holes in the bottom are too small. Sand will run through the holes, but pea gravel will not go through the holes. The other thing I could do, and is what the manufacturer suggests, is to use anchors and drill this thing into the concrete pad. Well, not for nothing. I'm just not super duper excited about drilling holes in my concrete pad. I understand that my concrete pad isn't the greatest to begin with, but I'm kind of leery about doing that. And I definitely don't want to put anchors. If I put anything in, it'll just be, nowadays they make really big Tapcons. And that's not off the table. You know, I can put, 2 or 3 in the front here, and then that'll just hold it down. If the wind comes along and picks it up and flips it this way, then the wind picks it up and flips it that way. The third thing I can do is nothing at all. This thing weighs about 450 pounds. It weighs about 450 pounds. It does have the pergola, or not pergola, I want to keep calling it a widow's peak, but it's not a widow's peak. There's a vent at the top. So if the wind does come up in here, that's why that's there. So if the wind does come up, and to let hot air out, but if the wind does come up, it should be able to, unless it's a massive 50-mile-an-hour gust, which we do get here, it should just blow out the top and actually hopefully create the opposite effect of the low pressure zone underneath of it and suck it down. That's usually what happens to my easy ups. So there you go. I'm gonna walk around here real quick and show all the shit that I'm not super duper crazy about, because I'm not gonna video me going around and tightening all the bolts. Okay, so first off, the welds are not good. They're not good at all. That one's actually an exception. That kid must have got paid extra extra that day. But a lot of the welds, these guys aren't welders, they're grinders. So that's that. The powder coat, as expected, was, you know, paper thin. I'd be curious to see what the difference between, so this thing was $1,200 on sale, $1,700 regularly, which means it was worth probably $500 depending on what day of the week you buy it from China. Oh, we got this from Wayfair, by the way. I don't remember if I mentioned it earlier in the video. So what do I like about it? Well, not for nothing, it's the perfect size. It's the perfect size for where we want it. We could have gone just a little bit bigger, but I think we didn't need it any bigger. So it's pretty much the perfect size. Every single hole on this thing was slotted. Okay, so every hole is slotted. Now this is the shit that I have to tighten up, and this is where those lock washers go in here. So, and those are all loose. Everything was marked, which was fantastic, and not for nothing. With a couple very rare exceptions, like I have to straighten that post out there. That post is crooked. The only bummer is I can't put a square on it. I don't know where I can put a big framing square on that thing. Maybe on the outside here. I could put a framing square on it somewhere to get that lined up. But oh yeah, here's the powder coat issues. You know, the powder coat is literally paper thin. Every single part was marked, which was fantastic. I have to go on a little bit of a fucking rant here just for a second and say that it took me 10 hours to assemble this monstrosity. Okay? Now granted, the instructions were pictograms, but everything was marked, everything was membered, and if you follow the directions, it went together exactly the way it was supposed to be. Unlike that railing that had absolutely zero room for adjustment in any way, shape, or form. Maybe the Canadians need to take a little bit of hint from the Chinese on this one. Now, the downside of all the bolts being, all the holes being slotted, well, it's got a lot of room for error, wiggle, what have you, to be out of square. One nice thing was the holes that weren't slotted were the connector joints here. These are slotted, but the bolts along the top side here were not. And by not slotting those, when I tightened them up, when I realized I had not put bolts in those holes, when I tightened them up, everything came up right into square and parallel the way it was supposed to be, which was really shocking. Like I said, the only thing I didn't do is put the bolts, I can't see, those bolts all the way up at the top there. And like I said, if something happens, if I get ambitious, I might fix it. I'm fairly sure this thing's not going to be 100% watertight. I guarantee there'll be a leak somewhere, and most likely it'll be because of something I did. But other than that, I'm really happy with it. It's long overdue to be put here, and you know, don't let anybody ever tell you you can't do something. No one's coming to save you. It's up to you to save your own sorry ass, and pretty much that's the way I did it. And like I said, if I have to move this thing by myself, I know I can move this thing by myself. If I have to put it up on furniture dollies, I'll be able to move this thing. It really wants to be over here. So this post here wants to be over here, and then this post over here, I got to get back into that corner. The whole reason I put this up was to protect my outdoor equipment here and to provide a little sunshade. I didn't install the screens yet. I bent this one. Putting it in, I may have to readdress that. The other thing too is the stays up here on the top. I got to go back and tighten all those, but I can just do that off of the step ladder. I think that's about it. Like I said, for 1,200 bucks, It is what it is. Oh yeah, I didn't put they came with rollers for the screens. This is actually a screen porch. I didn't install the rollers, and the screens are in the house. I'm gonna wait on that for a little bit. The other thing I may end up having to do is put a shade on this side of some kind. Hopefully the screens will act as a shade, but at the end of the day, the sun comes down and just blasts this spot. So, well, there you go. Okay, let's try this a third fucking time. This camera is really pissing me off. Where was I? Oh, so what did I need to put this together? I literally just, like, in my head, I'm like, holy crap, I forgot to mention the most important part of this, to me at least, is what tools did I need to put this thing together with? Well, you know, I read off earlier what the company said that you needed to put it together, and for the most part, they were actually right. The one thing that I did do, or the one thing that I am going to have to use that was like a weird tool would be this universal impact universal socket, because I didn't tighten everything up all at once. I have to go back and retighten a lot of things that are now in weird spaces or weird spots. So I do have the all-important 10mm wrench. A drift is super important. You have to have a drift. Now, you could use a Phillips screwdriver if you want, but this is actually a dedicated drift. A couple extensions, and I did use this 10mm socket has a magnet in it, and that was like super duper. That is super duper important to me. You can get them nowadays pretty cheap. I bought this as a snap-on, so that's fucking socket's probably $30. But otherwise, I didn't use a whole lot of weird stuff. The strap, the load binder to hold up the first post. The other thing is, and this is kind of important, just to mention if you don't know. So this is a 20. This is I have been sorted into the house of DeWalt. So this is a 20-volt DeWalt impact driver that I have an adapter on to run sockets with. This thing is, I don't want to say it's dangerous, but it can get you into trouble really fast, because if you cross thread one of these bolts and then you just try to ram it in with this thing, the thread setter, which I discussed a couple seconds ago, will spin out, guaranteed, and that will absolutely ruin your day. So I just happen to have this particular tool because I was a mechanic. This is a dedicated 1/4-inch drive impact gun. Okay, and this thing only has maybe 200 foot-pounds, if that, of torque, and it stalls out. As soon as the bolt goes down, gets tight, it stalls out. This thing, as soon as the bolt goes down, it gets tight. It just keeps tightening until something breaks. Ugga-dugga is really good. So I didn't use this, and I won't be using this if I don't have to anywhere else on this project. That's about it. You know, a pair of channel locks just because I dropped one of the pieces and I bent it and I had to straighten it back out. But otherwise, shockingly enough, it didn't require, 3D printers and CAD programs and masonry drills and all kinds of other stuff. So I thought I should just add that part in. You have to excuse the glare. So I actually decided to move this myself again. I'm still working on how to anchor this. The idea of filling this with pea gravel is actually, filling these columns with pea gravel is getting closer and closer to probably being what I do. So everything's under cover for the most part, except the sink here, which is a little not undercover, but I don't really care. My commercial table, my oven, which that oven originally was, my mom bought it because she wanted to make a pizza oven.
or it is a pizza. They call it a pizza oven, but it doesn't get hot enough to make pizzas unless you put. Man, it doesn't get hot enough to really make pizzas. But it works great for keeping food warm, or if I'm doing a party and I do heat and eats. You know, make everything the day before, bring it out here if it's something hot. Just throw it in there, warms it up. I cook a lot of hot dogs in it and stuff like that. So there you go. One man assembled that by himself.